Just a quick heads up, this episode has mentions of suicide and suicidal ideation. If you or someone you care about is looking for support and you are in the U.S., please contact the 988 National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing or texting 988 or visiting 988lifeline.org, or contact the Trevor Project at trevorproject.org. This time on the Q Division podcast, we open the case of 1969's Honor Majesty Secret Service.
This episode, we have our first female Bond lead.
Fellas, is it gay to collect butterflies?
And is it allergies, or are you just scared of chickens?
All that and more on the Q Division. Hello, agents. Welcome to another episode of the Q Division. I'm Gavin, and I've seen all the James Bond movies.
I'm Chels, and I've seen 6 and a TV special.
Question mark?
Always the question mark in my voice.
The Q Division's top secret mission is to take a deeper look at the history and impact of the James Bond films and other media through a queer lens. Speaking of, the Q Division is a proud member of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. You can find out more about Glitterjaw and their roster of shows that run the gamut of queer media at glitterjaw.com. I cannot believe I got through that with one take. That never happens.
You did so good because it's the Queer Podcast Collective where I'm like...
The last 2 episodes, I made you do it. I was like, Chels, do this part. This week, we're going deep, and I mean deep, into the 6th Eon Bond film, Honor Majesty's Secret Service. But for a film this big, we couldn't do it alone. So we're activating a secret agent, an editor, writer, and all-around post-production whiz, Jamiroqueer, to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. You are a podcast virgin, so sorry to expose you that way.
No, that is true. I barely even listen to them because I find them very distracting and I can't do anything else. So it takes, I don't know how people find the time.
Which is so funny because the podcasts are like my go-to washing dishes. Like,
same. We'll be very gentle, I promise.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much.
And unlike most of our other guests besides wonderful Jesse, you are actually a queer person, which is so delightful to actually have on the podcasts. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited to talk about this one. I know this is a personal favorite of yours as well. Not to spoil alert anything, but this is also my favorite James Bond movie. Chels, this is your 6th of the Eon productions. What did you think? I always like to check in with you because I want to make sure that it's never too I'm just waiting for the day where you're just like, cut it, we're done.
Oh my goodness. Please, you know how many soap operas I watch. It's going to take a lot to get me to stop. But no, I will say, for as long as this one was, and I was like, ooh, some of these sequences are long, I would die for Diana Rigg. So I'm like, here we go again. Swap me out in this scenario. Let her live. Oh, she is gorgeous. She is wonderful. The man is he's a man. As I say, he's more beautiful than bold. But you know what? Sometimes I do not need a smart man. He's there, and Diana Rigg is acting. Oh, God blessed. I love her.
I appreciate that you went with the bold and beautiful reference because that is a soap opera about models, and he is, in fact, just a male model.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I saw, and I was like, yep, he is beautiful and not bold.
Yeah, he is. I don't want to crap on him too much too early in the episode, and I do actually think he's as good as can be expected for his first movie. But yeah, to George Lazenby folks, were you bothered by the change? Were you? I know you've also experienced a different because we started with the Casino Royale, the 1950s Casino Royale. But was it
we've already seen bottom of the barrel. It's only up from here. And again, I watch soap operas. I am the person who loves all 3 versions of Luke and Laura's daughter, Lulu Spencer, because all 3 actresses were great. I just wish they had done the role of James Bond is now played by da-da-da-da-da. And if you're going to break the 4th wall, lean in.
I mean, honestly, it does share a thing with soap operas, which is oftentimes soap operas will send a child to a Swiss boarding school, and then they will come back from the age of 3 to 16 within a matter of weeks.
Yep.
So
literally just happened a year ago on Days of Our Lives. I am like, you child are 5, except you're 17 now.
That's right. They're smoking.
They do with those boarding schools.
I know. Well, it's a lot of drugs. It's a lot of drugs.
I very much agree with you though, Charles. I was trying to, formulate why I like this so much and sat down. It was just Diana Rigg, Diana Rigg, Diana Rigg. And, it took a while to form sentences because she's just so great in this.
Yeah, I love her.
And when she wasn't there, I saw Joanna Lumley in the background, and I'm like, man, do you think they ever regret like not giving her more to do? Like
Mm.
they just didn't know what they had.
Joanna Lumley really cherishes her time as a Bond girl too. I've watched a lot of like specials and whatnot, and she's like she's like conflicted about it because she knows it's like kind of an anti-feminist thing, but she's like, but no, it's like kind of a cool thing that like she's like people still when I'm like, oh, I was in a Bond movie, are like,
When I was a Bond girl, there were 12 of us minor Bond girls. And it was very interesting because we were all pleased as punch. We were all liberated girls from the 60s. We all loved the freedom of the 60s and lived our lives accordingly, I would think. But there was something terribly thrilling about being chosen to be a Bond girl. There's something mesmeric about Bond, that the same enduring kind of sheen of Bondism still sticks to me now. The fact that I can say to people I was a Bond girl and a flicker of respect. I only had 2 lines.
That's what I hear a lot. I remember Lois Chiles from Moonraker saying the same thing. Like she was going to take this role and people she knew were like, oh, don't do that. Are you kidding? You're going to be in one of those. And so it seems like it's always the same conflicted story. And, maybe sometimes you're in one of the good ones and sometimes you're not. And that might.
you did
People are just projecting their own insecurities
Mm.
and like again, I'm the person I have vocally said online for decades. Like, I do not believe in guilty pleasures. I enjoy bad things too. It's fine. We can love garbage too. We all go to McDonald's occasionally. Like, it's fast. Sometimes fast food's fun. But sometimes you go and you get a cheeseburger from a fast food place and it's the greatest thing you've ever seen or like tasted in your life. Like, come on. Some
Yeah,
of these
absolutely.
are good.
absolutely.
Don't be ashamed, Joanna. You did a great job. You look gorgeous.
All right, let's open the dossier on our Majesty's Secret Service. There's a bunch of things I want to get to before actually talking about the movie first, because there's so much background with this one specifically. So let's start with the book. So On Our Majesty's Secret Service is the 10th novel and 11th book in Ian Fleming's James Bond series, picking up the story elements from Thunderball, but coming directly after The Spy Who Loved Me. The book was published in 1963 and was written at Fleming's Jamaican home, Goldeneye, while Dr. No was being shot nearby.
I was gonna say, that frickin' colonizer, dude. He is Mr. Colonizer, Barbie. What are we doing here, sir?
Yeah.
The more I learn about this author, I'm like, I'm judging you real hard.
Yeah, he was a complicated man. That's me
He was a
being very
character.
yeah.
Yeah, you're reading all the books, right?
Yeah.
Got 1.4 books in and then stopped.
Yeah, you're not the only guest who has said that. I read a bunch of them when I was a teen, and I don't know what was wrong with me when I was a teen, but a lot of it just went over my. I was an early teen, but like I was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, and now I'm reading them, and I'm just like, what?
I did read a lot of books like that when I was a kid with stuff that went completely over
Yeah.
my head, but I was very good on the vocabulary otherwise and basically got it. And then you come back to that as an adult and are pretty shocked at what your parents let you read.
My first big gasp of the book was when they introduced Draco, Tracy's father, in the book. Her mother manages to catch some strays. He explains that she was a English woman, and he said, quote, she explained to me later that she must have been possessed by a subconscious desire to be raped. Well, she found me in the mountains, and she was raped by me. What? That's,
Mm.
and okay, I'm just gonna move on. I don't know. I don't know what Ian Fleming was thinking when
That-
he wrote that sentence.
I literally saw that and I was like, huh. Sometimes if you're famous, you don't have to say anything. And that was true back when people didn't have social media.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
sometimes just don't talk.
I was a little surprised. Bond mentions that he's out of shape at one point during the book, and he realizes he has to train harder, which I think is so funny because that is not the Bond you get in the movies at all. I don't think Bond would ever admit to that sort of flaw. You also have things, and these are all sort of stray thoughts that I picked because we're going to go through the plot anyways of the movie, and this one's actually very close to the book. Irma Bunt, who is Blofeld's secretary or his right-hand man, in the book, in the next book, which was the last movie, she's referred to as his wife. But because she's described not as a young buxom beauty, Fleming continually demeans her appearance constantly, making sure no human could ever find her attractive. In fact, at one point, Bond utters the phrase "Irma not so douce."
Oh boy.
Yeah. Bond also refers to the girls at the Institute of Blofelds as dumb. And also when he kisses one, it's pointed out how little she resists, like she's a doll or a passive princess.
Oh, the thoughts he has.
Yeah. He only seduces one in the book. So in the movie, he seduces a couple. In the book, she is presented as so willing to fall in love with him that at one point he's like, come on, I'm your boyfriend. And I was like, are they teenagers? What is happening?
Men are not okay.
Men are not okay. Blofeld's appearance has changed from Thunderball, though Bond and him had not yet met face to face in the novels, even though they've technically met face to face in the movies.
Well, I mean, it's a new actor, so he didn't recognize him.
Right, exactly. In the book, Blofeld is now tall and thin with long silver hair and a syphilitic gumma on his nose, which love that he included that. He also has the no earlobes like in the movie and has to wear dark green tinted contact lenses for what he claims is weak eyesight in the sun. I'm not sure. I guess that's just a way to hide his appearance, but like...
It sounds cool. I wish they'd done that in the
I know. Much like previous novels, Fleming used real-life events to research to fill out important details of the book. Bond's escape from an avalanche was said to have happened to Fleming once in the 1930s when he deliberately skied down a closed slope in Austria, the avalanche catching up with him at the end. Piz Gloria was also based on a real sports club called the Schloss Mittersill, which is in the Austrian Alps, where Fleming had once stayed. The Nazis had closed it in the 1940s and converted it to a, quote, research center for so-called, quote, race science. Yeah. During his research, Fleming engaged in correspondence with, and I'm going to butcher this, and I'm so sorry, I'm sure you're long dead, Robin D. Delane Mirles for research into genealogy. It was through this correspondence that he discovered that the Lane Mirles were often born without earlobes as a genetic trait, one that he then gave the character Blofeld. He also discovered a line of Bonds in Peckham, London, whose family crest bears the family motto, Orbis non sufficient, or the world is not enough, which Fleming appropriated for Bond's own family in the novel. And that comes to play in this movie, obviously. Much of the building of the relationship between Bond and Tracy is not actually in the book, and it makes the romance seem much more rushed. There's no barn in the end, and Bond proposes over breakfast at a diner, an impulse that even seemed to surprise Bond. Quote, Bond suddenly thought, hell, I'll never find another girl like this one. She's got everything. She's got everything I've ever looked for in a woman. She's beautiful in bed and out. She's adventurous, brave, resourceful. She's exciting always. She seemed to love me. She'd let me go on with my life. She's a lone girl, not cluttered up with friends, relations, belongings. Above all, she needs me. It'll be something for me to look after. I'm fed up with all these untidy, casual affairs that leave me with a bad conscience. I wouldn't mind having children. I've got no social background into which she would or wouldn't fit in. We're two of a pair, really. Why not make it for always? Bond found his voice saying those words that he had never said before in his life, never expected to say. Tracy, I love you. Will you marry me?
He really said, wow, she's got nothing going for her. She's so lonely. She's pretty, but like she really needs me. You know what? Let's get married. I can have some kids. She can take care of my children. That is the energy.
It really feels like the Connery version of this scene. I can see it now. Yeah.
M is a confirmed bachelor in the novel, much like it's implied in the movie. Though in the novel, he paints flowers instead of collecting butterflies. And I love that both are just so gay. Hypnotism, it's implied, can cure homosexuality. Homosexuality was decriminalized in the United Kingdom in 1967 with the Sexual Offences Act. This act allowed private consensual homosexual acts between men over the age of 21. This was followed by Scotland in 1982 and Ireland in 1983. Homosexuality is classified as a mental illness both in the UK and by the American Psychiatric Association, who removed homosexuality as a diagnosis from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders in 1973. So I think this is really interesting because this book comes out in the late 50s. And at this time, homosexuality is just considered a mental illness. So of course there's a scene where he's labeling all the things. He's like, hypnotism can get you to quit smoking or cure homosexual tendencies. And it's like, wait, what? I just love that there was a time in which we were like, hypnotism is not crack science, but homosexuality, that is where I draw the line.
Joke's on them. Us homosexuals, we have other mental illnesses.
Exactly. We come with a bevy of our own. Um,
Yeah.
Giving Bond a tragic ending to the story was an attempt to break the formula of the previous novels, trying to avoid the happy ending. However, it sort of reinforced the trope that our heroes need to walk their path alone, and once again states that Bond was not built for a heteronormative life. And I put that note in there specifically because when you think about it, like, Bond is not a truly heteronormative figure. Even though he is like the ultimate bachelor and he is jumping from woman to woman constantly, like, there is no like marriage for Bond. There's no like 3.5 children for Bond. There's no picket fence. And I think that's really interesting because I think he's presented as like the kind of like guy that women want to sleep with and men want to be. But like, he really doesn't present any of what we consider a heteronormative lifestyle.
Mm. Yeah, I found it
Mhm.
really interesting rewatching these in the last week. Saw the first half dozen again. And what I found most interesting was I forgot how cool all the women are, even though he kind of looks right through them most of the time. But he's very businesslike. These aren't romances at all. He's at work, and either they can help with the mission, or while we're here, are they hot? And that's basically the only thing he seems to think about anybody he meets. And it's because you're not watching his life. You're watching this guy who just has his job, and that's all he does in his life. And
Right.
it's there's really nothing heteronormative about it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, I don't know. It's one of those things where like he's not like idealistic in any way, but people treat him like he is. On the same track of all of that, and this is just a personal note for me. One thing that really struck me while reading this is there's very little psychology in the book, or like actual psychology. There's clearly mentions of psychology itself, but the analysis of why anyone does what they do is very, very surface. Tracy acts erratically, but it seems like the solution is that she just needs a man to dominate her. Bond acts sentimentally. He visits the grave of Vesper Lynn every year, but there's very little depth to these actions. There's also more drinking from Bond in the novel than any of the other novels prior, perhaps reflecting the reality of Fleming himself, who is currently in the process of drinking himself to death.
Mm.
So, yeah, I just think this is really fascinating. There's even like a passage at the very beginning before he meets up with Tracy on the beach and whatnot, where he's like remembering being on the beach as a child, and there's no like this is how I felt. It's like, I remember eating this thing and I remember seeing my mother. Isn't the beach fun? Like,
I love Lamp.
yeah, basically that. All right. Well, moving into the production of the movie, as we've mentioned, every attempt to adapt on Her Majesty's Secret Service prior to this had stalled because of weather or lawsuits or a combination of both. Saltzman's plan was to pivot from Connery to The Man with the Golden Gun, starring Roger Moore, but political instability in Cambodia, where they were scouting for the film, caused a delay, and Roger Moore had to sign on to do another season of The Saint. So Roger Moore is off the table, even though he will come back onto the table at a later date. Lewis Gilbert turns down directing a second James Bond movie at the time, and Peter R. Hunt, who was the editor of the previous Bond films, once again asks for the position. And finally, this time, after he reminds Broccoli and Saltzman that they had promised he could direct, they finally decide to give him that opportunity. Richard Maybaum once again was tasked with writing the screenplay after Roald Dahl's turn for You Only Live Twice. Maybaum was given the directive that they wanted this to be light on gadgets and hew closer to From Russia with Love. Hunt also tasked Simon Raven to spice up the dialogue, especially in the scenes between Tracy and Blofeld. Raven was said to have had a, quote, hedonistic lifestyle, and while there are many who claim he was gay after he was expelled from school in 1945 for homosexual activities, there are just as many people that said he had a more omnivorous sexual appetite. I found some interviews with Simon Raven. He is a catty little bitch, and I love him for it.
Thy dawn, O master of the world, thy dawn. It's by James Elroy Flecker.
For thee the markets throng with myriad slaves.
He did the scenes for me between Telly Savalas and Diana Rigg, to make the dialogue a little bit sharper and a little better and a little more intellectual.
Hunt himself was also gay, and there's some debate over if he was ever publicly gay or not. As much as we know out of the closet and whatnot, like the very different thing in the 1960s, obviously. Um, Hunt had a longtime partner in Nikos Kortis, who he spent decades with. Kortis also worked with Hunt on many projects as his assistant. And when Hunt died in 2002 of heart failure at the age of 77, obituaries were inconsistent with how they labeled him. Some mentioned a son who went by the last name Kortis, while others said his last name was Kortis Hunt, and most ended with, quote, "he never married," which we all know is very simple code for gay. For further reading on this, I highly recommend reading the blog about Peter Hunt on licensedtoqueer.com. I love giving them a shout out. He's agreed to come on the show, by the way, and I'm very excited, like the guy behind License to Queer. But anyways, I think this is important. Truly. I think, this movie is different than the other James Bond movies. And it's not just subject matter, and it's not just, it's everything from the look to the way it's paced to the acting. And I think it's important that Hunt is a queer man himself. And it's and I think that's part of the spice. It's funny, I went to see this on the big screen at the Museum of the Moving Image a couple weeks ago with my friend Connor, and I brought up afterwards, I was like, Hunt was a gay man. And he's like, maybe that's what these movies need. And I was like, I don't know, some of the one of the other directors we won't talk about was also, so maybe not. But like, yeah, but I do think it is, for every person that's like, oh, you have to be able to separate the art from the artist. I think this particular case, it's not true. I think Peter Hunt, especially having laid down the style in terms of post-production, and all three of us are editors. So in terms of post-production, having laid down the style of how he felt Bond should be, and then reinterpreting that for this particular movie through his directorial standpoint, I think he's all over this film. And so I think his personal life is intertwined with the way that this movie is. Thoughts? You can tell me I'm full of shit if you want.
No, I agree. I'm one of those people that you really can't separate art from the artist, because there is going to be something like, yes, hundreds of other people work on projects and do have a slight ownership over it. But at the end of the day, somebody is generally, like, start to finish, it is closer to their vision than anybody else's. And I just love that this gay man's like, I'm gonna get this hot model. I'm gonna get Diana Rigg from TV. We are gonna make this happen. It's gonna be bold, romantic. It's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be mine because I'm a catty gay man. That's how I imagine all of these gay men being like, no, 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 this is gonna be mine. We're gonna make this a little different. We're gonna spice it up a bit.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely something to that. Like I was babbling about before, the women who star in these, in this revolving door where it's someone different in every movie, is what I kept thinking about watching all of these. And yeah, I feel like this one's really different in that department. The mom quality the Moneypenny has, that I know you talked about before, I think is complete in this one. She is just mom, mother. And it definitely has a different attitude about this that I don't want to stereotype, but yeah, it might just be because it's not a straight guy shepherding it.
Right.
And I was gonna say, maybe because it's a gay man and gay men love bad bitch divas. Like, generally, that's a great
Exactly.
stereotype. I'm like, maybe that's why the women aren't disposable in this movie,
Right.
because how many, like every other movie, at least one woman is killed beforehand. Usually two of the Bond girls are killed by
Right.
2/3 of the way into the movie, and he's usually screwing one on a boat at the very end. So I'm like, none of these, like, yes, we do have some tragedy and stuff, but there's emotion behind it. And it feels like the deaths matter a little bit
Yeah.
more in this one.
It's interesting too, and this is just me thinking things on the fly, and I know we usually reserve talk of the women till the very end of the show, but I think of a character like Irma Bunt, right, who is very queer coded in this
Oh,
movie,
yeah.
but it never feels like she is disrespected in the way that
Mm-mm.
Fleming was disrespecting her in the books. It feels like she's incredibly competent, and she's very good at doing her job, and she knows what she's basically Blofeld's handler in this movie. She knows what Blofeld wants, she knows what he doesn't want and everything. And sure, it is her watch that James Bond gets away, but I think she's like, she literally does more action than Blofeld does in this movie until the end of the film, in which he's bobsledding and skiing and whatnot. But I think she's a fascinating, like, very powerful queer-coded
Honestly,
character.
if you didn't know any better, you would think Blofeld worked for her in many
Right.
ways. Because even at the end of the movie, he's driving her around and
Right.
she's like, it seems like she's the person in charge.
And funny enough, and like spoiler alert for the next movie, which it's going to be a bit before you get to, Chels, is he literally never gets his revenge on her. She just disappears from the movies.
That sounds about right for that one. It just forgets
Yeah.
it existed.
Exactly. It's
I
like
did read about why, and I'm like, oh man, that's sad. I would have liked to see her back, but you know,
they could have
life.
recast. They recast everyone. So,
Exactly.
in an attempt to keep the film as close to Fleming's novel as possible, Peter Hunt carried a copy with him on set at all times. And according to the Dutch article, The Forgotten 007 by Andre Tidjen from 2006, Hunt was quoted as saying, "I wanted it to be a different Bond film than the others. It was my film, not someone else's. Fleming's story was so beautiful."
The book of On Her Majesty's Secret Service was a great story, and it was a Fleming James Bond book. And so we didn't have to deviate. I didn't want to deviate. I didn't want to put gimmicks and tricks in it to make it. It didn't need making better. It was there. It was all there.
Still, the producers wanted the audience to believe this is a continuation of the previous films, having many references to the previous 5 movies littered throughout the film and the opening credits, yet still making light of the recasting with the cold open sequence itself. I love that cold open sequence. We'll get to it when we talk about the movie. The one thing I've never noticed until I had to read about it was when he goes to Draco's place, there's a janitor who's mopping, and he's apparently whistling Goldfinger, and every time I'm like, oh, he's whistling Moon River. Nope, it's Goldfinger.
I'm an inveterate IMDb trivia reader, so I think for that reason I already knew. It was Goldfinger.
Supposedly, around 400 actors were considered to replace Sean Connery, and while I won't be naming them all, the bigger actors that were named were Terrence Stamp, Oliver Reed, and a 25-year-old Timothy Dalton, who turned the role down because he felt he was too young. Hunt and Broccoli eventually settled on an Australian male model turned actor named George Lazenby after seeing him in a Fry's chocolate cream advertisement.
Here comes Big Fry with exotic Big Fry Turkish delight, full of Big Fry Eastern promise.
He also tells this like story about like he went and visited Connery's barber, and he went to Connery's tailor, and they just happened to have a suit that Connery hadn't picked up that he bought off of them, and that he tricked his way past the secretary into the office of Broccoli.
I was sort of hanging out outside in the footpath, walking up and down. And as soon as she bent down behind the desk, I went shooing up the stairs to where the casting was. And she's going, wait, hey, come back here. But it was too late. I was already up the stairs and leaning on the door saying, I heard you're looking for James Bond.
I feel like these are all self-made myths. I feel, because like he has this whole thing where Saltzman was like, where have you acted before? And he named all these countries he thought Saltzman couldn't check. And I'm like, the man's a movie producer. He can check. It's that like
Also, like, that Sean Connery suit is not gonna fit you, Mr. Male
Right.
Model, sir.
My
Like,
first
I am
thought,
looking
yeah.
at your legs versus his and your shoulders versus Mr. Connery's. These are very different body types.
Although didn't Steven Spielberg just kind of like break into Universal? And
that's also kind of an apocryphal thing.
tell me that's still true.
Yeah, no, when we did a mixed reviews episode about Steven Spielberg, and it's kind of true and kind of not, and it like gets more ridiculous as the years go by. So like, well, we'll say some of it's true.
All my dreams shattered on this show.
I know, sorry.
God.
We're just-
Okay, Fablemans.
I was gonna bring him up earlier too. We were talking about directorial intent for people that are like directors, like find me a Steven Spielberg movie that's not about daddy issues. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But Lazenby did still have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get this role, and supposedly he really didn't land it until they decided to do a screen test with the stuntman, and he punched him for real. And there's photos of this because it's literally the like very Russian looking Bond Blofeld guard, and he like cut across his nose, like there's blood, like Lazenby just, and apparently that impressed Broccoli so much that he was like, that's our guy.
I can see that because he doesn't look like he would. So if that happened in front of me, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I see it. I see it.
If I were a stunt person, I'd be like, you don't actually punch the other actors, you dipshit.
Also, apparently, and this is public knowledge, but it's not talked about a ton. I guess they were worried because he was a male model that he was, gasp, a homosexual himself. So they would send prostitutes up to his room just to prove that he was straight. Yeah.
Harry and Cubby were so concerned about my sexuality because I'd been a male model. They did send a girl up to my apartment. I think after that they realized that I was straight.
Yeah.
Damn.
That sounds like something a male model of the 60s would say.
What are they, his inadequate dad? They're sending women over there to make sure he's a...
Well, speaking of being his inadequate dad, he's offered a contract for 7 Bond films, but his agent at the time convinced him that by the 70s, Bond would be seen as a relic, and Lazenby only ended up playing Bond just this once.
Ronan O'Reilly was the guy who created Radio Caroline. He took me under his wing. He was anti-establishment, and he could hurt the establishment by taking me away from it. He said, these guys are monsters. They're just going to use you and spit you out. I felt that Ronan knew what he was talking about. It was the hippie movement. People were starting to think differently about life. LSD was out there. Most of us think the brain is us. But the brain, to me, is like a muscle. Your brain, that's something you're programmed to be. And Ronan was opening my eyes. I was really under his spell. He told me, once you get typecast as Bond, you can't get different parts. People were going to Easy Rider. That was the big movie of the time. There was hardly any young person that didn't have long hair. And you can imagine how I felt walking around with short hair, trying to get laid. I looked like a cop or a waiter. And people were peace, not war. And Bond was about war.
He was like, Easy Rider's popular with the kids now. It's the future.
Oh, that's interesting, because he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Just,
Knowing that Lazenby was wet behind the ears, the producers wanted a more established actress for Tracy. Bridget Bardot was approached, but she was signed on for another film, and it was decided that due to her popularity from the TV show The Avengers, Diana Rigg would be the best bet.
I know why I did it. I mean, I knew perfectly well why I'd got the job. George Lazenby was ill-equipped. Didn't know he was a model, male model. So I was there to sort of steer him through and give it some gravitas, which I did.
And though Donald Pleasance was well-liked in the role of Blofeld, especially apparently by Peter Hunt himself, ultimately they decided to recast because they were recasting the main actor, and they went with Telly Savalas. Piz Gloria, the set of Blofeld's machinations, is a real revolving restaurant located at the top of the Schlittelhorn in Switzerland. The production found it partially completed and then contributed financially to it in return for using it for the film in order to complete it in time. This restaurant still stands to this day, and it kept the name Piz Gloria. The snow, however, at the time that they shot this was so bad on the mountain that year that they ended up going 56 days over schedule on the Swiss portion of the film alone. Future Bond director John Glenn was there directing second unit photography and mainly the ski scenes, as well as acting as editor on the film. And there's this great interview with him where he had never directed anything before.
I just kept shooting, never stopped.
We'd say, well, you can't do that. And he'd say, but why? Why? It's there. If it's in front of you, you can shoot it.
And even when the weather was foul, I was doing inserts and things.
You're an editor. You should realize about it matching. Oh, he said, I'll make it match. I'll make it match.
I gotta say, before I first saw this, I remember thinking, oh, the editor of the first few gets to direct. So I immediately thought of the cliche, which would be like this guy going, at last, coverage. And I'm going to make the most ultra smooth movie ever because I know exactly what I'm going to need in the editing room. And instead it is even more jump cutty and rough, and it's all about energy and continuity. And yeah, that really put me in my place. I had to think about that. That's what the editor really wanted to do.
It's so funny, because he employs the same style that Hunt lays out for the previous films, but you're right, it's to the nth degree here. It's the opening sequence itself is wild.
Yeah. No, so many of these sequences are wild. Just to watch, I'm like, wow, an editor directed this. I am like, ooh, you can see the editing, and I don't know if that's a good thing right now.
I think it's what he wanted, honestly. But
he wanted to make it at his own, so
Michael Reed was hired as cinematographer. Michael Reed was working on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang at the time with Peter Hunt, and so he just kind of grabbed him for it. But what I know Michael Reed from is that he was a staple of the Hammer horror films, having lensed one of their best, which is The Gorgon. Yeah, I fucking love The Gorgon. I got to see that on the big screen too a couple years, or more than a couple, probably 10 years ago. I'm so old. And he worked under the instruction that the film was to look like a lavish movie from the 1950s, and yet none of the sets were to ever give away that they were not real locations. And I think what Peter Hunt was like talking about is Blofeld's volcano base from You Only Live Twice, because it's a beautiful set, but it's so fake because nothing like that. Yeah, exactly. Nothing like that exists in the world. And so Peter Hunt was like, no, that is not what we're doing.
Also, we need it on the permanent record that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is a horror film. So,
Famous fact, and I haven't told you this yet, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is also Ian Fleming Chell's. He wrote it for his kid.
Yeah, I just remember this because I've read that book.
this makes sense.
I read that when I was a kid, and I didn't read any of the Bonds.
John Barry returns again to score the film, composing what some have called, and by some I mean me and other people, have called the best score of the series. Worrying that the only way the title would work in a song would be as an opera aria, they opted for an instrumental track over the opening credits, led by a Moog synthesizer and built around a lament bass, which is a musical term so complicated I can't even begin to describe it. But let's just say other lament bass-driven songs include Hit the Road Jack, My Funny Valentine, and NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye.
What in the hell do those three songs have in common?
The lament bass, apparently. Barry also composed the ballad We Have All the Time in the World with lyrics by Hal David and sung by Louis Armstrong. Barry recalled that though Armstrong was quite sick at the time they got around to recording the song, he was able to lay down his vocals in one take.
I said to Kimmy Broccoli, I'm trying to think who can bring some kind of irony to that title. And I said, I think it's Louis Armstrong.
So Kimmy was very, very for it. And Armstrong had just come out of hospital. He'd been in hospital for about a year.
And we came to New York and recorded it. And to finally walk in the studio with him, it was like, oh my God, He was an absolute dream to work with. You're talking about a musical legend. And what was almost broke my heart at the end is when we were all through, he thanked me. I was very moved and I felt rather stupid, but it was such a nice thing of him to do. I get kind of teary-eyed when I think about it because it was the last thing he did.
Jay has not heard our You Only Live Twice episode, but in that we talk about how like Nancy Sinatra, the You Only Live Twice is composed of 23 different takes, her vocal track.
I completely believe it. No offense to Nancy Sinatra, but yeah.
I mean, it's partially Barry's fault, but I'll let you listen to that episode. It was said that Lazenby had quite the contentious relationship with both Peter Hunt and Diana Rigg, claiming both were out to make his experience miserable. Both Rigg and Hunt have denied this, though Hunt did try to isolate Lazenby a little, as he felt it would make him feel more Bond-like. And actually, Lazenby has said now that he thinks it's perhaps the right choice. He also forced him to rehearse the ending scene for 8 hours on the day they shot it, so that by the time he was in front of the camera, he was exhausted and gave Hunt the performance he wanted.
I wanted him to feel nervous and uptight, so that at the end, when she's shot, he really is emotionally involved.
The first take we took, I thought he was going to use it, but I brought a tear down my cheek here.
And he was emotionally involved, and he played it so extremely well.
I was really feeling it in the first one.
There was one where he cried less.
He said, okay, let's do one without the tear. James Bond doesn't cry.
This is from what I've heard from, now I can't think of his name, but the guy that directed Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This is also the way you direct William Shatner, which is that you do it so many times that he stops acting.
You wear him
can't
down.
have any of that.
I do love that gay people were torturing beautiful straight men, even in the 60s.
It's honestly how it should be.
Honestly.
At the premiere, Lazenby appeared with shoulder-length hair and a beard.
Oh, hey. Who would walk around looking like that?
And when Broccoli and Saltzman begged him to shave and cut his hair, he refused, permanently burning the bridge with them. Though the film's reputation is that it earned half of what You Only Live Twice earned, it still ended its run as one of the highest grossing films of 1969 and the highest grossing film in the United States of January of 1970. However, many reviews at the time were quite unkind, with Lazenby being the number one target. And while some found the film beautiful to look at and complimented Rigg, many dogpiled on Lazenby for being uncharismatic and in over his head. However, most retrospective reviews have labeled it one of the best Bond films, and among its fans include Christopher Nolan and Steven Soderbergh. So it has certain famous fans. And I just want to close out this section by reading this wonderful quote from Steven Soderbergh's website, extension 765. Shot to shot, this movie is beautiful in a way none of the other Bond films are. The anamorphic compositions are relentlessly arresting, and the editing patterns of the action sequence are totally bananas. It's like Peter Hunt, who cut the first 5 Bond films, took all the ideas of the French New Wave and blended them with Eisenstein in a Cuisinart to create a grammar that still tops today's how fast can you cut aesthetic. Because the difference here is that each of the shots, no matter how short, are real shots, not just additional coverage from the hosing it down school of action. So there's a unification of the aesthetic of the first unit and the second unit that doesn't exist in any other Bond film. And speaking of action, there's as many big set pieces in On Her Majesty's Secret Service as any Bond film ever made. And if that weren't enough, there's a great score by John Barry, some really striking sound work, and what can I say about Diana Rigg that doesn't start with the word wow?
100% agree with all of that.
I gotta agree with that last part there. I think some of the middle parts, like, calm down a little bit. Okay, bro. But Diana Rigg, we cannot say enough nice things about her.
Well, Soderbergh doing hyperbole? Never. I would
Never. He's one of my men I would fight on sight. That's a different list, though.
I really like him, but I would watch that, honestly.
Yeah.
You're a scrapper. I think you could take him. All right. Now let's really get deep into this dossier on Our Majesty's Secret Service. Let's talk about the movie. The film starts when we hear John Barry's harpsichord forward version of the James Bond theme, as we get George Lazenby's first and only gun barrel sequence. We then widen out to the Universal Exports London Limited building plaque, longtime fans knowing this is a cover for MI6, and the reflection of a man walking by, played by none other than director Peter R. Hunt himself, making a Hitchcock cameo.
A gay man would.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Q is briefing M on radioactive lint to keep track of opponents. M isn't impressed. He wants to know where Bond has been keeping himself in regards to Operation Bedlam, which is the plot to capture Blofeld.
I love this scene. It's an opening briefing in the office scene. It's not particularly special. There's no action. But even here already, when it's just started, it looks different. It has these, what I think of as like Michael Winner shots where you're at the front of someone's desk looking up, so all their stuff is in between. I don't know how to put it, but that's one we haven't seen before. And Moneypenny has like one line and it's 2 different shots that they cut between really fast. It has a different feeling already. I love it.
I also love that he's using a lot of specifically forced perspective because, like you said, the death shot, but also what we're going to see in a moment too, is there's a lot of like foreground shot of like a grappling hook type thing. I'm not quite sure what that is. Like it's the 4-quad thing that James Bond picks up and uses as a weapon on the beat.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that in the foreground while they're fighting in the background later on in the film. When Tracy pulls Bond's own gun on him, you see her hand and the gun in the foreground and you see him in the background. There's a lot of that in this movie specifically, and there's nothing like it in the rest of at least in the earlier Bond films to this. It's like Peter Hunt knew exactly, based on the films that he had cut, like how he wanted his Bond film to look.
Right.
Yeah.
You could definitely feel it.
Mash cut to Bond driving around some cliffs. He is passed by a woman speeding in a Corvette and decides to give chase. Every shot of Bond is in shadow, keeping us from getting a look at his new face.
Bond spots the car parked by a beach, retrieves a sniper scope, and sees the woman in a gorgeous silver butterfly dress attempt to walk into the ocean and end her life. He races down there and attempts to save her. Carrying her back to shore, he introduces himself, and we finally get a clear look at Lazenby as James Bond. Before she can give her name, Bond is attacked by 2 men who try to drag his beach buddy away. Bond gets the upper hand, and a fight in the ocean ensues. The woman, seizing the opportunity of the distraction, gets up and drives away. Bond picks up her shoes and quips, "This never happened to the other fellow," as he breaks the fourth wall, staring at the audience, and brings us into the opening credits.
Okay, these are gay opening credits.
But also, like, the breaking of the fourth wall is so wild. Like, because I think the other thing about this one's particularly is, listen, our next James Bond movie, because we skipped it so I could make this the 7th episode of the show because I'm insane, is the Casino Royale parody shells. And I just think, how can you, like, when there's an opening sequence like that ends with that, like, "This never happened to the other fellow," how can you make a parody? Like, they're already doing it themselves. Like, you don't
Exactly.
like,
I found that so interesting, because these are not serious spy movies. They're not like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold or something.
Right.
But that's what immediately happened, is even sillier movies showed up to be like, we're the parody of Bond films. I love the Matt Helm films with Dean Martin, which are ludicrous, ridiculous movies that are barely even pretending that you're watching a story about a spy instead of just watching Dean Martin mess around and play pretend. But I find that so funny that those are like the high class spy parody almost instantly as soon as they started coming out.
It's so funny too. Well, I mean, I also, when it comes to this movie specifically, I think of like the Vincent Price, Dr. Goldfoot, and the Bikini Machine and Dr. Goldfoot, and but at that point it's like past ridiculousness because this movie's already playing in that sandbox.
And you actually skipped the other one because you're like, I can't have Chels talking about Woody Allen just yet. Not the same week as this bullshit.
Next episode, though, oh boy.
Oh, just wait. My violence will be amped up. Okay. John Barry's theme for On Her Majesty's Secret Service kicks in over Maurice Bender's latest masterpiece, a martini glass revealing itself to be an hourglass. 3 women posed as Britannia over the Union Jack flag and several images from the previous 5 movies, which I got so excited by those previous images. I'm like, oh, I miss her. I miss her. Remember that weirdo?
Yeah.
Good times.
I love a good montage like that. I love Friday the 13th movies starting with that as well.
Yeah.
And so,
The funny thing is, though, about those specifically is, like, with Friday the 13th, like, it almost doesn't matter. Like, the continuity almost, it's not that the continuity doesn't matter, but it's the fact that Jason is masked. So it almost, but for this, it's like, do you get like a shot of Donald Pleasance's Blofeld in there too? And it's like, but wait, we're about to see a completely different Blofeld as well. So
we're in the days of our lives science era. They have entered Chelsea's realm. This is what we're going for.
I feel like it's a Coraline thing, and now he's meeting the Blofeld he's never met before.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's how they explain all that.
Actually, this is the One Life to Live where they flash back to Blair Kramer, and it was an
Asian woman. Yeah.
Instead of the Southern woman.
That is one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite soap opera moments of all time. I told Chels about the.
I remember.
This is a complete sidebar, but I used to watch soap operas with my mom. And Blair Kramer was a character they introduced on One Life to Live as an Asian woman. And then she left the show for about a year, and then they brought her back as a sassy blonde Southern woman. And so when the person that she had married, Asa, died eventually, they did this thing where at his funeral, everybody was flashing back to like their happier times with Asa. And she's sitting there, and it flashes back to her wedding to Asa when she was an Asian woman, and cuts back to her looking very confused.
Oh man, because what they usually do, they shoot all shots again and they edit them. But no, they just did that and then had her.
Yeah, she was just like, she like takes out her compact and looks in the mirror real quick. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's so good, and I love that both actresses, but the second one a lot.
Fourth wall breaking, it works.
After the opening credits, Bond pulls up to a resort hotel where he has followed the woman from the beach's car, dressed in a full white suit. The major domo at the hotel informs him the car belongs to Contessa Teresa de Vincenzo before showing Bond to their best room, which includes a bed on the balcony.
Yeah, it does.
They got all their bases covered. That night, Bond enters the bright purple casino in a black tux and ruffled shirt. After a couple of rounds of baccarat, a game we have seen Bond play in Dr. No and Thunderball and that really bad TV special.
Yeah.
Teresa buys in on a hand and loses it all. She informs the banker she has no money, and Bond covers for her, saying that he had forgotten that they had agreed to be partners for the evening. He follows her into the dining area, and she is none too pleased.
I love that bit. That bit is directly from the book, but yeah, just she handles it so well. I know you.
Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorite moments in it. I was so happy to be reminded of it when watching it earlier today. The way she tosses the cards on the table and stands back up and turns and beckons with her finger to tell the guy, I have no money.
Madame? Je regrette, madame, mais c'est impossible.
I regret too, but I don't have any money.
Dame can't pay up.
S'il vous plaît, madame. Venez avec moi. S'il vous plaît, madame.
Forgive me. My mind was elsewhere. Madame has forgotten we agreed to be partners this evening. Please continue.
Merci.
I could just watch an entire movie where she just goes around fancy places in a cruise debt. Like, it is the most elegant thing I've ever seen.
She be scamming, and good for her.
There's a whole passage in the book about how she would, like, Bond is worried she would be banned at all the major casinos in Europe, and I'm like, I don't think she cares, buddy. I think that's what the whole point. Like,
It's
yeah.
for funsies.
God, imagine not caring about casino bans. She's in trouble.
Teresa asks Bond why he insists on saving her, and when he calls her Teresa, she says Teresa was a saint. She's known as Tracy. She hints at being suicidal while leaving her room key and leaving the table. Bond orders their champagne and caviar to her room and follows, only to be confronted by a man who tears the hotel room apart. Bond throws the man through a door and heads back to his room, but not before sampling the caviar. Smooth move.
I mean,
Loved it.
same. I do the same. As Bond undresses in his suite, a scantily clad Tracy pulls Bond's own gun on him. Really hot. He strong-arms her and demands to know who the man in her room was, and when she fails to answer, he slaps her. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
You know, Sean Connery's not here, they be slapping. And she convinces him she knows nothing. She playing dumb. He tells her to get dressed, but instead she heads to the balcony bed, telling him her debt isn't paid yet. I love her. He tells her she doesn't owe him a thing and offers to talk instead, but she kisses him, and he wakes up the next morning to her having left the hotel. I love that she's the one playing him in all
Yeah,
of this.
absolutely.
Good
Yeah.
for her. She's horny. She knows what she wants. Oh,
And she has good dialogue during this whole thing. She is witty and kind of running around him, and it's awesome. I love it so much.
he cannot keep up with her.
I can be a lot more persuasive, Contessa.
I'm sure you can. Whatever else I may be, I'm not a liar.
It's so funny too because it's a complete 180 from her character in the book is so morose and so suicidal, and even to the fact that like they sleep together twice in the same night, and at first she's like very coy and playful, and then when he goes to sleep with her again she like puts up a fight and it's like, no, I hate you, and it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not, once again, I don't think Fleming has any interest in any sort of real psychology here, and is just sort of writing like weird, for lack of a better term, rape fantasies. And I, you know, I like that this here, she feels like a woman very much of her own possession. And even so to the point where like, did any of the other women ever sneak out on Connery? Like, that's a really impressive thing, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of interesting because like a leftover Connery scene, showing up here as if they're trying to like reassure you. He seems nicer and this seems different, but he's still James Bond. He'll do the wrist move where he holds a person. I wouldn't say it's out of character exactly.
No.
But it's it definitely feels like they throw it in where you get the classic woman where he acts like this.
We're not there yet, but it is really out of character when it comes to Roger Moore, and we'll get to it, but like he put a stop to it. He was like, no, I'm not doing this. So
yeah, it's really rare in his, right? It is in a couple, that kind of
it's
conversation.
The last one that it occurred, like, I mean, I'm sure there's like some, but the last time like it's really violent is Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
And supposedly, and I'll bring this up in that episode too, but I'll say it here too, supposedly Roger Moore told them like, no, like this is like literally said like Sean Connery would do that. I'm not Sean Connery. And so
I feel like ironically, I thought that must be the last one, The Man with the Golden Gun, because it's pretty shocking in that one.
Yeah.
It is at a step for his kind of movie, so it actually kind of almost works better as a scene because you're a little stunned that he's gonna be that cruel really fast out of nowhere because it's Roger Moore. um, but yeah, I'm glad to hear that because you don't miss it.
No, not at all. No. As Bond leaves the hotel, he is immediately picked up by a bunch of goons who bring him to an unknown location. Bond makes the joke, "Why not? Perhaps we could make up a foursome," to his all-male hostage takers, including his attacker from Tracy's room. Wink, wink. And once again, I think this is a little bit of that, like, the one, and I feel like this comes to play later in the James Bond movie. I mean, I'll just say it, in the Daniel Craig movies, where there's like a diffusion of what could be considered gay panic. And I think that, like, here, particularly because it is Peter Hunt, I think that line delivered by Connery would feel much more weird and sinister. And here it's like literally just like a playful, like, let's have a foursome, guys. Like, you know?
Again, he's a male model.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like the different energy it brings. Where he acts tough by acting like he's having a friendly outing, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Beautiful. Bond is brought to the offices of Draco Construction, and after a brief struggle with some wild sound effects, Bond is introduced to Draco, who tells Bond he can kill him after he hears him out and has a drink with him. Draco apologizes for the rough way he was brought. I liked this small interaction. He's like, you can kill me later.
I didn't put in my notes the actor who plays Draco, who is really fantastic. And unfortunately,
Also very handsome.
Oh,
Must
my
be on
God.
the permanent record. Ooh.
Gabriel Frizzetti. And I do want you to know, Chels, and I don't know if you clocked it because you're very good at clocking it. He was lip syncing for his life, unfortunately, because they deemed his Italian accent too heavy.
Do not kill me, Mr. Bond. At least not until we've had a drink. Then if you wish, I'll give you another chance. I'm Draco of Draco Construction. But today is the 13th, Commander.
I'm superstitious.
A martini for our guest, Ellen.
A pleasure.
Shaken, not stirred.
Of course.
But I like the dub in this. I think this is another really good dub on.
I don't think I knew it was one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him in Once Upon a Time in the West, and I thought that was his real voice either. So yeah, get that right
It's
by
okay.
me.
It's not Madam Web, so they're doing great.
This is one of my favorite scenes as far as the different really going for it action that he sets up. Every shot for a minute is a zoom lens going, but it actually is kind of like Steven Soderbergh's. That's why I nodded along with all that, because yeah, every shot is actually the next one you need to show what's happening. And it's not just he threw a bunch of stuff together for the visual of the zoom happening over and over. It seems really messy, but it's very coherent. And yeah, it's just great. And I love the way it ends with the door that he's in front of, looking at what's in the room as people start banging on the door behind him. It's a terrific moment.
It really is. The other person I wanted to point out in the scene, by the way, too, and I'm like desperately trying to find her name, and I know it will not be easy.
I think I remember the character's name's like Olymp or whatever. Is that the lady?
Is that his assistant? Yeah, Virginia North. Virginia North, who plays Olympie, who is like maybe his assistant, but also maybe his current wife. And she's just kind of played as like his lover and whatnot. And I love the like idea that like Bond interrupted them playing chess, and he's like, oh, she plays a great game of chess and everything too. And I like that the other thing about her is she's clearly there for the male gaze, but it doesn't feel gross. It doesn't like, she's clearly also like doing a job, doing a service, and there because she like clearly is into Draco. It doesn't feel like she's there for a hostage. Exactly. Yeah. And so like, I don't know. I think that's an interesting that maybe you wouldn't have gotten in another Bond movie. Anyways, Bond instantly knows who Draco is, the head of the Union Course, one of Europe's biggest crime syndicates, only being outdone by Spectre. Draco reveals he's also Tracy's father. Her mother was an English girl who fell in love with him while he was hiding in the mountains. After she died, he sent Tracy to a school in the Alps, and as Draco described, she's been depressed after the death of her husband, a philandering Italian count, and that Bond, he believed, is the only cure she needs. Bond says she needs mental help, not a husband. But Draco offers him £1 million, and Bond once again says no. Instead, Bond wants whatever info Draco has on Blofeld. Draco says he won't give it to a spy, but he will give it to his future son-in-law, and then invites him to his upcoming birthday party that Tracy will also be attending. I love that we have a little bit of a she's all that situation.
I was like, this is some she's all that, 10 things I hate about you energy. Like, I mean, he's no Heath Ledger. I mean, there's a better Australian out there that could have done this. But you know what? I appreciate the teen comedy of it all.
It's funny, I was talking about this earlier, and he busted out the My Fair Lady reference, and I was like, oh, I was going to bring up She's All That. You got the classier reference. But, I mean, yeah, exactly that.
And I'll let you guys decide, the listeners, what's the better movie? My Fair Lady or She's All That?
Let us know in the comments.
Go. Bond returns to headquarters and surprises Miss Moneypenny by pinching her bottom. He invites her for cocktails, but she says she wouldn't be able to trust herself and ushers him into M's office. M is reassigning Bond off Operation Bedlam because he hasn't been able to capture or kill Blofeld in 2 years, telling him, your license to kill is useless unless one can set up the target, and quickly sends him away. Bond tells Moneypenny to take down his resignation from Her Majesty's Secret Service and goes to sulk in his office.
You mentioned earlier the like mommification of Miss Moneypenny, and yeah, nothing could be more on display here than when he pinches her bottom. It actually it's the first time where it feels like unwelcome. Like her reaction is like, oh no, like why are you doing that? Like.
Yep. And then he asks her for drinks and she turns him down.
Yeah.
And he's not like, very wittily asking. He kind of sort of is. And she says no. And it's a very motherly tone that she says. It's oddly enough, even with the bottom pinching, it seems more professional than the other urgents.
Yeah.
Because they're very clearly just playing this game that they play. And when he comes back out and asks for the resignation, she starts doing that and then immediately cuts it off and starts taking the note because they're at work. And this is just the banter they do. And that's part of why I like this so much more is the dynamic is so different with everyone back in the office. And maybe it's corny of me, but it's more of a family kind of feeling than with Sean Connery. And I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I will say this is where I really noticed the difference in the actor because, like, yes, the writing was not there because it's been innuendo and flirtation in the past. And this was so blunt and to the point. And it's like, let's go out in many ways. And it was much more aggressive. And I'm like, this feels weird. They're not fun and flirty anymore. And I couldn't tell if it was like a problem of the writing or if the actor didn't know how to be flirty. So that's when I was really trying to study this as a romance, like the film, because it is a much more romantic film as you go along. But I'm like, this is different. I'm going to keep my eye on this.
I feel like it made him feel like he was younger and more inexperienced, even though it's supposed to be the guy who was already in the first 5,
Yeah.
That's the vibe that he gives off because he was younger,
Yeah.
right?
And he's way less smooth, though.
Yeah.
Like, the charm is not entirely there. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like nudging him into how to flirt with her. But yeah, I feel like it has a very introducing him into the series kind of feeling.
The other thing I just wanted to bring up from that particular passage in the movie is I love that M reiterates that he is literally just a hired gun. He's like, your job is to kill the people I tell you to kill, and you're not doing that. And I think that's fascinating because that doesn't come up in the movies as much. Only when it like they need to reinforce what it is that Bond does. But like in M's view, specifically when he says that, he doesn't think of Bond as like fancy gadgets and cars and like hanging out in bars and dressing up in tuxes. He's like, no, you're a gun. And your bullet goes into who I say it goes into. And I think that's sort of fascinating because it's like a stark reminder of like, this isn't a nice job. Like the thing that Bond's doing is actually quite despicable. After Bond rummages through his desk and we're treated to music cues and gadgets from the previous film, Moneypenny calls him to let him know that M wants to see him. M coldly lets him know the request is granted, but Moneypenny has secretly only asked for Bond to have 2 weeks leave, not to quit. As Bond kisses Moneypenny on the cheek goodbye, M reveals he can hear everything in Moneypenny's office and thanks her for what she has done.
See, nice family vibe.
Exactly.
It's such a sweet moment when that happens. And I can't imagine M being annoyed with him all the time, doing that kind of thing where he's like, thank you so much for keeping him around. Bless you, Moneypenny.
It's very like temper tantrum toddler moment. Like, I quit. And it's like, no, you don't.
But yeah, they really do seem like his folks in this one, though. 'Cause like, oh,
They do.
Up. We'll give him a timeout.
It's like, go to your room, get a snack, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Here's an apple juice. Have fun.
Love apple juice. Tracy, dressed in a beautiful Spanish horse riding outfit, arrives at her father's birthday, instantly recognizing Bond's car. Draco is having his birthday at a bullfighting ring, and he introduces Bond to Tracy. The meeting is icy. Draco, Bond, Tracy, and Draco's assistant lover lady sit down for lunch, and Tracy resents the idea that she might have been promised to Bond. She forces her father to give Bond the information he has asked for, and when he has the info, says Bond needs to no longer have interest in her and storms out. That's our teen rom-com, gang.
Exactly. Bond catches up to Tracy at her car and comforts her as she begins to cry, reinforcing that he wants to be her lover, not her enemy. We follow this with an adorable falling in love montage as Bond spends his 2-week vacation with Tracy, while one of my favorite Bond songs plays, We Have All the Time in the World, by John Barry and sung by Louis Armstrong, as previously mentioned. The only thing I want to add to this is every time Peter Hunt would turn in a cut of the movie, the producers were like, it's too long, you need to cut things. And the first thing they'd be like, the falling in love montage.
Really?
And Peter Hunt would be like, no, like, no, they need to fall in love on screen. And I'm so happy he did that because it's one of my favorite sequences in the movie and is the thing, like one of the things that really sets it apart from the other Bond films.
That's surprising to hear, though, because it's so obligatory for that year, for the late 60s, early 70s, to stop the movie and have an entire song play from beginning to end while they provide the visuals for it. So it's really surprising to hear they wanted to get rid of that right off.
I understand it just from the runtime perspective because the movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I do want to know, I want to see what else they cut, though. I am curious.
I think only 2 major sequences, honestly.
Every time they got groceries from the mountain and back.
Yes, exactly. It was just all the supply runs.
They walked all the way up the mountain and down again.
You did mention, like, in your notes that it is so adorable that they don't even kiss until the end of the montage.
Yeah, it takes a while. It is a very, very, it is full of respect. It is a montage of them talking. She's talking and he's listening. It's the real stuff, what you really want to see in a romance. And I love it so much.
Yeah, the bit where they're like walking on the beach and it's not like slow motion lovers running on the beach, sort of, it's just them like teasing, like, it's one of those things where like you do wonder, because once again, she was hired as the actor in the movie, and you wonder like how much of that was driven by her being like, okay, we're gonna play a scene now, so I'm just gonna talk to you, and we're just gonna actually talk like normal people, and they're gonna roll on the camera, and that's what's gonna happen. So,
and then he would get so titty baby offended that a woman was telling him what to do.
Yep.
And be like,
I know.
She's making my life so hard.
I want to like George Lazenby because I feel so bad for him, but he just seems like he was an absolute asshole on set.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I've even found interview clips with him where he's like, I do all my own stunts, and it gets boring after a while because it's the same thing over and over again.
Well, I do my own stunts mainly because the director wants me to. He feels, and I also agree with him, that it'll look better and they can go in closer on you when you're doing your own stunts. I enjoy some of them, but they can be a bore. Like punch-ups can be a bore unless they're a real punch-up. You know, it's just standing there running through the same routine over and over again. It's like planting potatoes all day.
Which is like annoying, but also not fully true because like that's not fucking him skiing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first of all, no, you don't.
Right,
No,
exactly.
those thighs are very different.
Right.
Like he's
so,
got
like,
very skinny thighs for like that broad of shoulders. I was paying attention.
For a stuntman, yeah.
I can objectify too. Bond finally follows up on Draco's tip about a German lawyer who works for Blofeld, with a little assistance from Draco's criminal construction empire. He sneaks into the lawyer's office and copies some documents on a giant safe cracking machine delivered to him by the construction crew next door. Almost getting caught, he is able to slip his way back out of the office, document copies, and stolen Playboy centerfold in hand.
The stolen Playboy centerfold is maybe my only moment where I'm like, okay, guys, like we didn't need it. Like, it's fine, it's cute, whatever, but it was just like, because it once again it doesn't feel like Lazenby's Bond.
I was gonna say it's very much like that other scene.
Right.
Yeah, it does feel like a leftover a little bit. I do love the scene though. It's some of my favorite music in that with the doing suspense synth.
Oh yeah,
it's great.
And because it's so music driven, absolutely. While this is happening, Tracy reveals to her father that she's in love with Bond and hopes that one day he'll fall in love with her too. And she asks her father for no more tinkering in their relationship. Once again, this is another scene where I guarantee if they asked for the love montage to be cut, I guarantee they asked for this to be cut too. But this is such important character development for who Tracy is, nonetheless, too. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that Tracy is the star of this movie because we spend so much time with her. Yeah,
definitely more
I'm
complicated.
with you because when she's not there, I put this on my letterbox. It's like I am just waiting for her to come back. Like I am just like candle in the wind. Where are you?
Should have the other characters ask, "Where's
Where's
Tracy?"
Tracy?
I feel the same way. I think it's a great, important scene. I love the way they have her say this because, for Much with Love, especially, I think the woman in this role in the story is like, "Oh, we're in love. It's so wonderful. We're going to be together forever. I'm so happy." And she is much more realistic, but not sad. She is happy, but he asks about him being in love with her, and she says that may come to someday.
Yeah.
And it's really complicated for this kind of character in a Bond movie, and it's terrific. I'm so happy it's here.
Absolutely.
And I'm also glad that there's none of the teen comedy. Oh, this was for money or a bet or whatever.
Right.
It's like, no, she knows exactly what's going on. And she's like, what? Just don't mess with this. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I'll be
100%.
fine.
Yeah, she clocks it from the beginning and is like, okay, we're not doing this, guys. Shut it down. Like,
No. I love her. Bond arrives at M's massive bachelor mansion and interrupts M's day of butterfly collecting goals. Bond reveals that he knows Blofeld is hiding out in Switzerland under the name. Oh gosh, Gavin, why would you give me a name?
and so it's Count Balthazar de Beauchamp.
Beauchamp.
Yeah.
I love European bullshit. Blofeld is hiding out in Switzerland under the name Count Balthazar de Beauchamp and is hoping that he can have his lineage proven through the London College of Arms Genealogy Department, headed up by Sir Hilary Bray. You mean Hilly. That's
Yeah.
Hilly.
Bond meets with Bray, and Bray reveals that Bond's family motto is "The world is not enough" on his family coat of arms. Bray agrees to let Bond pose as him after Bond does a pitch-perfect impression of Bray, which is just dubbed, not Lazenby doing one himself. It's so funny, Lazenby's like, I didn't even know till the movie premiere that they were going to dub me, and I'm like, okay. Anyways,
They
Bray...
just didn't tell him.
Right, exactly. Bray also tells him to look out for the Beauchamp family trait of lacking earlobes. If Blofeld is who he says he is, he shouldn't have them, which is not an exact science.
This is Days of Our Lives science, gang.
I also do want to mention just the idea, once again, Emma's presented as like a happy bachelor, like living alone with his manservant, collecting butterflies. And I do think as an interesting parallel to the beginning of the movie, the first time we see Tracy, she's in a butterfly dress. She's in a dress that the wings are on the arm. And I think there's like an interesting, I don't know what the parallel is, but there's certainly more psychology in that little fact than there is in the entire book of Honor Majesty's Secret Service. So I just want that thought out there.
This says a lot about our director, our homosexual.
Oh, yeah.
Bond as Bray arrives in Switzerland and is immediately whisked away by Blofeld's personal secretary, Irma Bund, first by sleigh ride, then by helicopter to Piz Gloria, a resort turned Allergy Research Center, which honestly take me there for my allergies. All the while, Bond is being tailed by a backup agent sent to look after him. While in the helicopter, Bunt asks Bond if he enjoys skiing or bobsledding. He replies he's not a sporting man, even when he's at his best. Many have taken this for years as Bond's first hint that Bray himself might be queer, which is kind of a lame stereotype.
Yeah, there's I guess there's this undercurrent that people have talked about for years that Bray is supposed to be homosexual, and
Like the real one, or just that
both.
character?
Well, that's
Oh,
the
okay.
thing. And so, and I even think that's even funnier because the guy that plays Bray is actually Peter Hunt's neighbor. So like, I don't know what that says there, but
So, a literal friend of Dorothy?
yeah, exactly. But I just think it's funny that like the way that they hint at it, like there if it weren't for the like lame references that keep popping up, there wouldn't be like nobody plays him, especially for the 1960s, like nobody plays him in any sort of like feminine front facing sort of way. I mean, I guess he wears a kilt, but like lots of people wear kilts. Like
I guess he's sort of the male equivalent of the librarian spinster cliche, sort of.
Yeah.
Is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I guess so. But it's weak.
He's like 30. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Bond and Bunt are greeted by a series of guards. Bond remarks that guns make him nervous, and Bunt says it's to keep away industrial spies. Bunt tells him he will submit to a full medical examination, and when he is led away, she phones Blofeld, who we see from behind. He says to treat Bond as Bray to all of the comforts, as his famous fluffy white cat plays with the telephone cord. Bond is told that he has to ring in order to be let out of his room and to have it unlocked, as all the patients are locked in their room for their own benefit. When Bunt leaves, Bond immediately sets about searching his room for bugs. He then dons a kilt and makes his way down to the dining room, where he's greeted by a bevy of beautiful Blofeld beauties. I did this to myself on purpose. Patients of Blofeld from all over the world being treated for their allergies. I put allergies in quotes earlier because I don't believe any of these girls even had allergies to begin with. Like, especially when they describe, like, when Ruby's like, oh, I used to be terrified of chickens. It's like, that's not what an allergy is, lady.
No, like, I
Right,
have a
and
food
they-
sensitivity to chicken. That's what it is. You don't have an allergy because you're scared of chickens. Also, you just punch the chicken and move on. Chickens are so mean.
Yeah, that's my secret theory, though, is that they track down the people who would be the most suggestible to this secret devious plan they have, and it's people who have imaginary allergies. People who make waitstaff lives miserable. I don't know, but there's some kind of psychological profile, and that's my theory as to what they're really doing, and that's why hypnosis training works. You
Totally.
can be like, and you love chickens now, which is definitely how an allergy works.
Bunt stops the girls from describing their treatment or revealing their last names, and at dinner he notices everyone has very specific dietary needs. One girl only having chicken, one having only potatoes, one having only corn, and so on. Bond regales them with stories of genealogy, proving that he is Bray, as he says he is. Some of the women are enthralled, others are bored out of their minds, Joanna Lumley. He claims his coat of arms has 4 gold balls, prompting one of the girls to write her room number on his inner thigh with lipstick. The kilt is coming in handy, baby. When Bunt asks if anything is the matter, he retorts, just some slight stiffness coming on.
Honestly, it's perfect. He delivers it perfectly.
That's a great moment.
Yeah, truly, especially when she like reaches over and right, like it's perfect comedy. Once again, it's one of those things where like, why make parody? It's already here. Like, Bond is brought to Blofeld, and as he goes, previously mentioned Joanna Lumley, future AbFab star, remarks that she, of course, knows what he's allergic to, commenting on his sexuality. After a decontamination, Bond is face to face with Blofeld once again, even though they do not recognize each other.
Different actors, both of them.
Exactly. Blofeld shows off his lobeless ears like the Habsburg lip or the Medici nose. Bond says he'll need more proof, and Blofeld explains his technique for curing the allergies is both psychological and medical. Bond demands Blofeld join him at the ancestral Beauchamp home outside of Switzerland, which would avoid any lack of Switzerland's extradition treaties. So basically, he's just trying to get him out of the country so he can arrest him. and Blofeld turns him down. I think that's funny just because, like, it's very clear that M is like, no, kill him. Like, so it's weird that Bond, like, because that's eventually what ends up fucking Bond up. Like, that's eventually what Blofeld catches him in the lie about the ancestral home. And it's like, he wouldn't have to lie about it if he just shot him. Like,
No, this is the point.
Once again, he's more beautiful than bold.
I couldn't help picturing this as like a Patsy Stone story about that winter. She was at that clinic in Switzerland, and I gave him this radio. They never called, and then it exploded. But at her telling this story, I can imagine it would be so funny. No men.
yeah. No men. Just with a cigarette. I love Ab Fab so much.
Oh no, it worked. I never ate again.
Oh, I should go rewatch that. I just watched Joint Alumni's Celebrity British Bake Off, and it is perfect.
Oh,
I'm sure it's delightful.
I didn't know about this.
It's great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Back in his room, Bond checks out the perfect lipstick 8 on his very nice inner thigh. Figures
It's
out
a
way
very
to...
nice inner thigh. I don't want to interrupt
It's a
you, but it
very
is
nice-
absolutely, yeah. I was like, when I saw the movie, I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this is why I'm queer.
We need more thighs in movies.
Yeah.
Like, thighs are underrated.
The shot of her writing on it, for one thing, a moment like that in a scene to get it like physically coherent is actually kind of tough.
Yeah.
And it's really good at that, but also it's just a great shot of his thigh.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful
That's
it's
a
there.
great penmanship.
Yes.
He figures out a way to unlock his room, only getting zapped once, and he makes his way to the room of Girl 8, Ruby, and under the guise of showing her his genealogy book, he sleeps with her. Pretending you don't like girls, she says. I usually don't. That lipstick was an inspiration, and so are you, he quips back before asking her to call him Hilly. He drops his kilt. Oh, it's true, she exclaims in reference to his 4 golden balls.
I love everything about that
love
sequence.
her.
Yeah, she's great. The reaction is perfect for the like, it's true. And I love that that's like, that is a sexual reference you actually have to think about. Like, you have to have been paying attention earlier in the film to be
Well,
like,
that's a kilt gag, isn't it?
is it?
I assume that was, it's true they don't wear anything under it.
I'd never even thought of that.
That's what I was assumed.
I assumed the 4 golden balls thing, because that's when he mentioned that at dinner, that's when she gets really interested.
That's true.
So
Wow, how deep does this disguise go?
2 things can be true.
2 things can be true. Later that evening, she confides her name, where she's from, and how she used to have a terrible allergy to chickens. But before she can go further, they're interrupted by flashing lights and the calm voice of Blofeld using hypnotic commands to, quote, cure her of her hatred of chickens. Bond is unable to wake her and retreats to his room, where another Blofeld beauty is waiting for him. She remarks she didn't think he likes girls.
But I think you do not like girls, Hilly.
Usually I don't, but you're not usual. Coming here like this was an inspiration, and so are you.
To which he says, I usually don't, but coming here like this was an inspiration, and so are you, before also sleeping with her. The repeated use of that got a huge laugh in the theater, and it made me so happy, because like, that's the laugh you want. Like, I love that he's such a scumbag that he's just like, I'm just gonna use the same line twice, whatever.
I love that the story works on straight people.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they would believe that. Yeah, usually not, but
Great, they get it too. Also, this is full Stefano DiMera using John Black as the pawn in Days of Our Lives science. This is how you activate.
Amazing.
I was dying.
gotta see Days of Our Lives.
The next day, Bond's blonde agent friend tries to take the gondola up to Piz Gloria, but is met by resistance from Blofeld's men. Bond himself joins the girls in a game of curling as his blonde cohort tries to climb up the mountain. He's given away by some crows and Blofeld's men open fire. Bond and Blofeld verbally spar, after which Bond makes several dates with the girls. In an attempt to return to room 8 that evening, Bond finds Irma Bunt and Rubies and is surprised with a blackjack to the head, knocking him out. I loved this. So funny.
I will also say this like takes a small card from the Thunderball book, but because that is just the playbook, because that is clearly not Irma Bunt in the bed until it cuts to the close-up. It is clearly Ruby, and that's very much the Thunderball opening sequence with the like, he punches a woman and suddenly it's a man in drag. So like,
I was watching for this after reading your note, and yeah, that is 100% her right up until they cut to the close-up.
yeah, exactly. And I love that. I love that sort of fake out where it's like, Bond's not dumb. It was literally another woman. Like,
My favorite part is that her giggle is there. She giggles a little.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just Irma Bunt doing, which is
She's
the
a woman
best.
of many skills, shape-shifting and voice
Oh, yeah.
modulation.
Oh, I had no trouble believing it. Yeah. I love her.
really the mystique of her day. Bond wakes under the Christmas tree. The jig is up. Blofeld has deduced that Bray is actually Bond. Duh, they've met before. And tells him his mistake was misstating where the Beauchamp family tombs were. That and sleeping with several of the girls there. I also love, just as a sidebar, Bond checks his room for bugs, so he must know he's under surveillance at all times, and then goes and fucks some girls in their rooms. It's like, you know you're being surveilled. Like,
This is why he stays in character the whole time.
yeah. What? This is another, like, this is how you know this is the same Bond from the previous movies, because he's bad at his job.
Yes, he is dumb.
Yeah, he did graduate to using a different name. I think it's a real milestone.
That is a real milestone. Blofeld villain monologues about how his plan is to sterilize the world's food supply through a genetically engineered disease if his demands are not met by the United Nations. He plans to hold Bond as hostage until he gets what he wants, locking Bond in the mechanical room of the mountainside gondolas. I know you're a big fan of the zoom lens when it starts.
Oh, wait, do it again. I added a note for this that just says zoom lens. When he wakes up again with the Christmas ornaments, it was a big, slower than the fight scene was, but it's the same kind of visual idea where it just zooms in on ornaments. I love that this is the only like psychedelic acid rock era kind of Bond movie. I'm really pretty glad Sean Connery wasn't around for that one. Because he would just earmuffs.
And Chels hasn't seen it yet, but even when they try, and they don't do it very well or quite often in Diamonds Are Forever, but even when they try like little touches of it, it just doesn't work with Connery at all.
Yeah, I feel like, I haven't seen that in a while, but I feel like they claw back a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, never mind.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah, but
also, they had to go real cheap for Diamonds Are Forever, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, yes. But yeah, it's just more of that differing and specifically very late 60s visual style with using the zoom lens all the time, and I just love it.
This is also how I learned that this is a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
Did not know that it was
right,
Christmas
yeah.
time. So everybody, next holiday season, here you go. No more Die Hard discourse. We don't need it. Blofeld's beauties gather in the lounge where they are each given a gift box. While this is happening, Bond plans his escape using his pocket liners as mittens. He scales up the cable car ropes to reach the outside. Honestly, brilliant. Get your mittens, girl. The girls are all drugged as Blofeld's hypnotic voice tells them to rest. Bond manages his exit with all of his fingers intact and sneaks back into the facility, witnessing the girls in their hypnotic trance. They open their gifts, a makeup and perfume kit. They are told never to use the atomizer until they are given orders, and that at every night at midnight they are to switch on their compact receiver for him to deliver his post-hypnotic command. Kristen Damara will do this. Mark my words.
This movie is actually how I found out about about atomizers, which I have like a whole set of like cologne atomizers behind me now. But like I was like, what's an atomizer? And then I was like, oh, it's just a little cologne.
It's such a cool name.
It's a very cool name for such a like kind of generic thing. Like,
anyway, Patsy Stone was like, yes, he's told us never to use it, and frankly, it tasted horrible.
actually, yeah, just drank it. Bond is able to escape the facility, taking out a guard and skiing down the mountain, but is almost immediately spotted. Blofeld's goons give chase, causing Bond to break a ski and improvise a snowboard out of his remaining board. But a wrong move launches him towards a cliff, and with a little quick thinking, he's able to trick one henchman over the side in a drop that feels like it goes on forever, and knock a second off as well, but not before stealing his skis. Seeing this in a theater played on 35, when the guy went over the mountain and like it just kept going, you could feel like everyone holding their breath, because it's crazy that it lasts that long, that they just watch him drop the entire way.
I'm so jealous that you got to see. Yeah. Yeah, I love the way that ends, where it's a shot from directly overhead, and he's sort of not shrinking a lot. And for perspective, you see his shadow come in from the side and then meet him when he hits the ground.
Yeah.
It's such a crazy stunt fall, and I think mannequin fall.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was a mannequin. Yeah.
No, that was a real person. That was somebody they didn't like that
all
day.
the way.
Yeah.
Really wanted to give their all to Bond films.
That was actually what happened to George Lazenby. That's why he couldn't do another film.
They shot that one last.
Yeah.
Yeah, Willy Bogner, this professional skier who had been filming himself in this rent skiing. He was an amateur documentary filmmaker, and they brought him on to work on the skiing action in this because he could hold the camera and ski at the same time, which was like a pretty new sight unseen, and it was really awesome. And he also does The Spy Who Loved Me, I want to say, and I forget what else, but he's come back to other Bond films.
There's a lot more skiing in the Roger Moore Bond movies, Charles. You will see that. Roger Moore is always skiing for some reason.
Yeah, he's
I will
great,
be
though.
comparing thighs then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it commands that you do. But yeah, he also directed a couple of movies that are very, very bad comedies, but they all involve a lot of skiing. One of them is like a obstacle course people are doing against each other to get an inheritance. It's one of those. They're full of stunts, and the stunts are great. So might be worth seeing if you love ski stunts.
I got a phone call from Cubby Broccoli asking me if I was interested in working with the Bond people. I was supposed to go for 3 weeks, and I was staying for 3 months then. So it was a great adventure.
When I first saw his material, at the very end of the rushes, this material came up, which was all handheld. The most exciting skiing material with the guy skiing, following skiers through trees, and one guy, in fact, leaping up in a tree.
Skiing is my profession, or was my profession as an Olympic skier. And I didn't have too much problems with, actually skiing with a camera.
One of the most spectacular skiers I've ever come across.
None of the stuntmen, certainly not myself, had the ability to do what Willy Bogner could. He skied forwards, backwards, sideways, from the top of roofs. He was brilliant.
I love a niche. Irma Bunt says goodbye to the beauties who have now been released to the world, much like butterflies. As Bond finally makes it down to the village, and after a few close calls with more Blofeld goons and a polar bear with a still camera, he finds himself hiding in a skating rink where who should appear before him but Tracy. Y'all, my heart restarted. My attention was got. I miss her so much. You just don't understand.
When that camera pans up from the skate to her in that that little skating outfit, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long one, but it's like the perfect amount of time where you almost kind of forgot all that was going on.
Yeah.
And it's actually surprising that she shows up and you're kind of right where he is in that scene. It's great.
And that scene is actually genuinely tense. And I think part of it is the way that Lazenby is directed. He looks worried, which is not something you often see from Bond.
Yeah, he really seems screwed.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was confused and missed his mark and was looking around for it. He was confused. I'm just being mean. Recognizing that he is in trouble immediately, she gets him to her car and away from the village, but not before he is spotted in the passenger seat.
Yeah, that is so funny to me that she's driving away and she pulls the car back around, and one of Blofeld's goons just immediately sees him. He pulls his coat up.
Yeah, they're right next to each other when they get in the car, and he's hiding from them as he gets in, and then he doesn't duck.
No, he doesn't duck. So bad at his job.
He's not smart. Those brain cells were so stretched thin.
Tracy reveals her father let her know where Bond was, and when Bond tries to contact the Home Office, they have to make a run for it again, attempting to lose Irma and the henchman at a stock car racing rink. After a tense go of it, Tracy is able to flip the henchman car and make their way out of the rink. "We didn't even stop for the prize," she quips as they get away. Once again, she's the star of the movie.
Absolutely.
That is a James Bond quip if I've ever heard one. Also, she revealed they let her drive.
Oh, nice.
During that scene.
Really? Because she looks so in command in that. She's having a decent. They keep dubbing in her scared voice going, "How do we get out of here?" and stuff.
Yeah.
But her face, every time they show, she just has her tongue sticking out a little as she turns around. She's got it.
Calm,
Like,
cool,
yeah.
collected, and then
I-
it's like the VO. I'm scared. Oh no.
Yeah.
I guess the thought process was that for the driving scenes, because Peter Hunt wanted them to look real in comparison to the driving scenes from the previous Bond movies, is that the actors would have to drive for themselves so he could get the close-ups. And so they let her do the stock car scene. And it truly, I'm sure there was some stunt driving when it's not in the car.
Oh, yeah.
But like when the camera is on her, like that's her really there on location.
Interesting.
But I did drive that car around that rink and loved it. It was great. Poor cameraman was green, as you can imagine, but that was good.
She probably actually knows how to film inside a car because
Oh,
of
yeah.
the TV show The Avengers, which like it makes sense that two of the best Bond girls came from that TV show.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
realizing in real time, good for them. When the snow proves too much, Bond and Tracy find a nearby barn to hide their car and spend the night. As the glamour lighting and Vaseline lens hit their peak, Bond tells Tracy he loves her and asks her to marry him. They joke about where they live, and Bond tells her that it's his New Year's resolution is to not sleep with her again until they are married. And when she says, "Whatever you say, darling," he quips, "And that is yours." However, he reminds her that it's not the New Year yet as they kiss and the scene fades to the next day.
Oh, I love this scene.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Good for her. She got herself a beautiful dummy. Good for her.
I like how when he says, "I love you," the look on her face is like, oh, I finally said it. And the first thing out of her mouth is asking if he means it.
Yeah.
Because she is really so grown up and has been around. And all the stuff she says and how she approaches this relationship is so complex
Right.
for a Bond film.
Well, the other funny thing is, and I think it's sort of like glossed over quite a bit, is that like her father is a criminal, and so she's been a part of this world because being a spy isn't, especially when he's that type of international criminal, like isn't that different than what her father does. And so she sees like probably how like I know her mother didn't seemingly live very long, but she sees how destructive a relationship like that can be. And I'm sure she thinks to herself, like, I don't want that. Like, I want like a real thing. And so that's why she like feels the need to like really press for that commitment. But yeah, sorry, that's real psychology.
Yeah, it's probably why she looks trepidatious when the spy assassin says, "I love you."
Well, she's a character with depth. We can analyze her. There's actually something there behind the eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's such a delight.
Blofeld's men invade the barn only to find that Bond and Tracy have already left. More skiing ensues and ends when Blofeld uses a flare gun to initiate an avalanche. Bond is left for dead as Blofeld collects Tracy to hold hostage as collateral. Back in England, both Bond and the window reflect back to Tracy being taken, and M informs him that they have no choice but to meet Blofeld's demands, including amnesty and a recognition of his title as a count. God, he's so petty. M says, quote, "A very curious thing, snobbery." Knowing M can't help, he turns to the one man who can, Draco and his ring of criminals. I love that bit of the showing the henchman gathering up Tracy and then cutting back to him in England, looking out the window, and you see it like matted into the window once again. And once again, another thing that like there's nothing like that in most Bond films.
Exactly, yeah. So, like visually, and also that it's I don't know, an emotional flashback moment for they don't do that, right? I can't think of another one that's like that.
Not really. I think if you want that sort of pathos, you have to like get to like the Craig era Bond.
Oh, right.
Or like I feel like that those are much more like wistful in terms of the Craig era Bond, where he go with 2 movies goes from Brand New to Over the Hill, which is my favorite because like Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace are supposed to be like basically the same movies, take place in the same time period, and he's like a brand new 00 agent. And then you get to Skyfall, and they're all like, he's a dinosaur, and I'm just like, wait, what?
You're right.
Yeah,
I forgot. Maybe it's because the movies were so long. I forgot how they kind of speed run that entire thing across 4 movies, and then it's over. Yeah.
Wow. I have so much to look forward to.
Oh, they're good. Mostly.
We'll find out. Draco loads 3 helicopters up with his best men and heads out to Switzerland as Blofeld wines and dines Tracy. First off, she's a bad bitch in this moment. I love her so
Yeah.
much. She
Well,
finds
this is
his
all-
criminality. Yeah.
This is all Simon Raven's very queer, like bitchy writing. So yeah.
Yeah.
This is every gay man loves a fabulous diva and wrote for her. She finds his criminality undesirable, but he reminds her her father is also a criminal. Blofeld offers to make her a countess, and she reminds him she already is.
Now, if you're very, very nice to me, I could make you my countess.
But I'm already a countess.
Whereas if you displease me, I can promise you a very different estate.
The helicopters are radioed too, and they claim to be a Red Cross mission delivering blood and emergency equipment for an Italian flood disaster. Tracy recognizes her father's voice over the radio.
Tracy suddenly becomes more open to hearing about Blofeld's proposition. She asks to be brought to the Alpine room at the top of his Gloria so she can see the dawn, and she and Blofeld recite poetry to each other. The helicopters make their presence known in a volley of machine gun fire. As Blofeld flees the scene, Tracy is left to fend off two goons with champagne bottles. Bond jumps from a helicopter and slides into battle, firing his machine gun. Tracy gets the upper hand, killing her guard with Chekhov's spiky wall art, and Bond and Tracy are finally reunited. Bond launches back into battle, quipping once again that guns make me nervous, as Tracy is loaded to safety aboard the helicopter. I only mentioned the Chekhov spiky wall art because when you see it in a theater, I'd never really paid that much attention, but like they really focus on that wall art earlier on in the movie, and it's like, why is there just wall art that's just literally nails poking out of the wall? And then she uses it to kill a guy, and I'm like, oh, that's why. Like,
I loved the style. It's part of the, the great look that the whole movie has. And I actually was just like, oh, how cool. I didn't think that it would get used later the way it does, but I'm easy to please when it comes to that.
I just love that she is the most competent person in this whole movie. Just like in this whole sequence of events, I'm like, yep, I trust her.
Yeah.
She's fine. She really doesn't need Bond. It's
And she's
good.
flirting with him by quoting back at him. It's so great. It's very good.
Oh.
Yeah, this is stuff Bond could not do. She has the situation in hand. It's fine.
Bond is able to snap photos of a map where Blofeld's beauties will be, unwillingly delivering the livestock killing virus, but is pursued by Blofeld. Draco knocks his daughter out when she tries to go back for Bond, and Piz Gloria explodes just as Bond and Blofeld jump to safety. Blofeld plans to use a bobsled to escape down the icy track, but Bond is hot on his heels. After many missed gunshots, Blofeld tries grenades, of course, knocking Bond off his bobsled, but Bond is able to throw himself onto Blofeld's sled and fight him till he loses control of the vehicle. Bond gets the upper hand and pushes Blofeld into a low-hanging tree branch, breaking Blofeld's neck. Bond quips he's branched off, instead of an obvious joke about family trees being right there.
Seriously.
I agree. Like, come on.
This whole movie's been about genealogy.
Genealogy and family trees. Come on.
The only other thing I want to add to that is Telly Savalas did that stunt himself. Because they tried to shoot it with a stuntman and it didn't look right. And what I think is really funny about that is when you watch the movie, there is a cutaway in it that looks really bad. And I almost wish they hadn't cut to it because like the person's in the wrong position.
Is that the one where it's like up to his chest?
It's up to his chest. Yeah.
Yeah. The calamity of continuity on this movie that just doesn't matter because it's so good and exciting and propulsive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is definitely one of the moments.
And I just wish they hadn't kept it in because clearly like Savalas got it right, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah. We are then treated to the marriage of Bond and Tracy with M, Q, and Miss Moneypenny, as well as Draco and his assistant in attendance. Draco and M compare notes over their adventures. Q gets in a few digs, but offers his support, and Bond rejects Draco's payment as he tries to slip a check into his pocket. Bond waves goodbye to an emotional Moneypenny, and he tosses her his hat.
Miss Moneypenny, what would you do without me?
I always cry at weddings.
007 never had any respect for government property.
I teared up. I don't know what it is about Miss Moneypenny crying, but I can't handle it. I cannot handle it.
Me too, earlier today.
She can do so much with like hardly anything in the script.
Yeah.
I love her.
As a Bond obsessed kid who saw all these a lot, I loved Lois Maxwell so much.
Me too.
She was so beautiful and so wonderful and like the best person in all these movies. I was delighted to see The Haunting and see Lois Maxwell's in that too, eventually. Yeah, she has such a great presence and she handles this scene so well because I know I was saying before she's more like his mother and she wouldn't be crying at his wedding because he's off the market, but she is a little sort of, and there's a little bit of mother and it's just such great acting. I really love that scene.
Absolutely.
And yeah, totally cried earlier today. I'll admit it if you admitted it first.
And we, as 3 homosexuals, would have loved a whole movie about her.
Exactly.
Following her around.
I've never read them, but I will put a plug for them. There is a series of book called The Moneypenny Diaries.
Oh.
And I have no idea of their quality, but I'm sure they're great, you know? So and they are written by a woman, so.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go. Making a note. In the car on the way to their honeymoon, Tracy tells Bond she wants 3 boys and 3 girls, and he
Too
quips
many.
they have all the time. So many.
Too many.
I say this as somebody with like, there are 3 girls and 3 boys. It's too many. I have to count all my siblings, both hands. And he quips that they have all the time in the world. Reminded that their car is still covered in flowers, Bond pulls to the side of the road to remove them, as Tracy tells him he has given her the best wedding present, a future. Suddenly, a car goes screaming by, a neck brace Blofeld driving and Irma Bunt in the back with a machine gun. She opens fire, hitting the car. Bond races inside the car and says it's Blofeld, not realizing that Tracy has been shot in the head and killed. He embraces her body as a policeman arrives, and he tells the officer that it's quite all right, she's only having a rest, and that they will be going on soon. There's no hurry, as they have all the time in the world.
It's all right. It's quite all right, really. She's having a rest. We'll be going on soon. There's no hurry, you see. We have all the time in the world.
I am devastated.
Yeah.
I am not okay. They could have just killed him. They should have killed him.
See, it's way more powerful if they kill the star of the movie. Yeah, that's the
Exactly.
That's true.
There's some contention about this the inclusion of this in the movie. Peter Hunt has said that he had to fight to keep it in because it is from the book. He's also said that had they, because they knew Lazenby wasn't going to be in the next one, but had he been in the next one, he would have preferred that the movie ended with them driving away and Diamonds Are Forever beginning with this sequence. But they shot this sequence to have it in case that happened. And when they found out Lazenby wasn't going to be, he then had to fight for it to be kept in the movie. This is also the scene where he like wore George Lazenby down.
Right.
And I guess he did yell at him at one point, because he was like, "Don't cry, James Bond doesn't cry." And I think it's much more powerful because he like that. His not crying makes me more emotional as an audience member.
He doesn't. No, it's good acting in that moment when he says that. Looking at this description in text, this scene sounds so terrible. She's like, you gave me a picture.
I wrote that.
No, but like she's saying that I have a future now. I remember she's literally looking into the distance at her future as she's saying this.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the worst thing you've ever heard for, the last 10 seconds before she dies. And then he says, we have all the time in the world, which he just said. And it sounds so awful, but it's such a good scene. And I guess it was right to wear him down for 8 hours because the way he says that at the end is absolutely perfect. It's really great.
Yeah. No, Diana Rigg has the, soap opera legend Kim Zimmer from Guiding Light can turn shit into sugar. She's been cloned. She's had breast cancer, then had a child after menopause, everything. Like the worst storylines, but also she sells you everything. Diana Rigg sells you this terrible dialogue that she wants this happiness, this future. It's like, oh, it's within my grasp. Like this kind of sense of normality she never had with her criminal father. And she's like, the spy guy, okay. Are we making it work? What?
Yeah.
And then they just had to gut me.
I didn't even include the bit where she's like doing the like he loves me on the flowers and like, which I think is maybe the weakest part of this entire sequence, where it's just like, I know it's supposed to be cute and they're being like romantic, but it's just like, ugh, who cares?
Even that part, I love that part too.
The film ends on the bullet hole in the windshield and on a slate saying James Bond 007 will return in Diamonds Are Forever. The end. So we've reached the end of this movie. Any final thoughts before we get into sort of analyzing the characters briefly?
You first. Guess first.
I still think this is I like that you said guess first and then I immediately took it. I still think this is one of the most amazing Bond movies. It's my personal favorite. I love every second of it, and every time I see it, it's only more reinforced to me that it's like, to me, this is, of the 60s Bonds, this is the great James Bond movie.
Only downhill from here now.
Well, you're gonna enter the 70s, so that's what you have to feel like.
Yeah, it's bumpier. There's good stuff in the 70s, but
yeah.
And yeah, like none of my favorite stuff, to be honest.
I know you famously don't like one that I really do like, but we'll.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, famously, it's the talk of the town. But yeah, this is definitely still my favorite. Always was. I guess just all the stuff I've already babbled about. It adjusts to the new Bond actor in a way that makes it one that I like more. The dynamics are a little different, and he seems different, and the blonde girl is a well-rounded character who you care about a lot, and that's different. Or I guess I should say that he cares about a lot, and that's the change. But yeah, just a fantastic movie and so much fun. And there's not much to say about the ski sequences, but they are awesome. I really loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. There was like 5,000% less jump scares and yikeses than literally every other one I've watched. And oh, Diana Rigg, I love you so much. It's like I compare this Bond actor. He is not a great actor, but he does a perfectly serviceable job. But everybody else around him is good enough that you don't even mind that he's not the most interesting person in the room. And that's what's fun. I do think some of the editing doesn't work. Like the action sequences, it's a little frantic, and also it goes on for a very long time. I know they were like 56 days over like schedule and whatnot, but you didn't have to keep in all 56 days of it. Gang, I know you worked hard to get it, but some of those sequences we could have trimmed a little bit.
What would Willie say?
Yeah, what would Willie say? Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree with all that. I for all the inconsistencies there are in the editing, I do really like it. I think it adds excitement, but there are definitely certainly areas where I'm just like, why? Like, there's a moment where when he first gets to the skis to escape, and it like speeds up him putting on the goggles, and I'm like, why? Why do we like? Did he put the goggles on too slow? Like.
It's the sped up shots that are pointed at the ocean waves for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, geez, what's going on out there?
In terms of Bond girls, we literally have beautiful international women. One thing I do think is interesting in the book, they're all England based. Like it was all like Blofeld was only targeting England, and they were like, no, this has got to be international nonsense. It is a little silly that they're all kind of in international costumes. But I do appreciate that, like, that the nice thing is from all different ethnic backgrounds. It's like a nice thing to be reminded that like it's not just beautiful blonde women that like can catch Bond's eye. There's all these other, but in the end, I guess they don't really have a ton of agency on their own.
No, I guess that's
yeah.
I will say, Ruby, she seems like a fun time.
She does.
Oh, yeah.
There's a great little interview clip where she said, Joanna Lumley, like, really kind of, like, led them all as a pack and was like, well, we're going to be bored up here. It says we're going to be up here for a month. Like, why don't we pick a hobby? And Joanna Lumley taught them all to cross-stitch.
Joanna Lumley, as usual, has a very, very strong personality, and she organised us all. She said, now what we ought to do, girls, is we ought to have something to do while we're stuck up this mountain. Now, I suggest crochet. So we all started to crochet. We crocheted blankets, shawls, and all the fellas thinking, oh, here's a lot of crumpet here on the set. We were all crocheting. Sorry, no, I can't come out tonight because I've almost finished my crochet blanket.
I need a movie of Joanna Lumley just like guiding people through something, just being the Regina George bad bitch commanding her cult of women. That's a movie that I just thought of.
I would buy her cross-stitch instructional video series.
Yes,
For
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
absolutely. Tracy Bond herself, the lovely Diana Rigg. I feel like we've kind of set our piece on her, but I do love, once again, and we've said it a billion times. I like that she's a three-dimensional character. That she's sort of everything that you want out of she's not a damsel in distress. And even when she is sort of taken at the end to be used as leverage, it never feels like she's in danger because she's so like on top of it herself. From the moment she hears her father on the radio, she's like, I got this.
It's literally like she would have been fine. James Bond did not need to come for her. Like she was already perfectly fine by the time he arrived. She is easily my favorite Bond girl at this point. Good luck to everybody who follows this. I am so sorry. Like the standard is, ugh.
I gotta say, watching these again, Honey Rider from Dr. Gnome, I was just like, what a life. I want to hear about her. If these are the two first stories she tells about her life, like I want to know the rest. She is fascinating. And then when she gets captured, there's nothing for her to do.
Nope.
She just waits around until James Bond comes by and rescues her. And yeah, it's so awesome to get the complete opposite of that in a similar scenario in this one. I think it's such an improvement.
In terms of villains, we have Irma. Like really, our queer-coded villain is Irma Bunt. I do not get any queerness from this Blofeld. If anything, I would say Savalas plays him more towards the book Blofeld, which is described as like asexual. Like his sexual his sexual gratification comes from getting the things that he wants, and that's it. Like, because even when he's like hitting on Tracy, it's like he's not interested in her. Like he's just using her. Like he doesn't care. But Irma Bunt, like as the head of these beauties and whatnot, I think she also had a very good winter. That's all I'm saying.
Love Irma. Also, rest in peace to that actress. I guess she died like a few days after this premiered.
A few days?
And,
I don't think I knew that. And literally no one on set had anything negative to say about her. Her name is Issel Stepa, and even George Lazenby said his first scene with her, he was like, I just wanted to study her because I realized watching her, like that's what acting is. Like what she is doing is acting, and I think that's a huge compliment, especially from the guy who's not really an actor, who's the lead of the movie.
She died of a heart attack 4 days after the movie's international release. She was intended to return in Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, that's why you mentioned the thing you said earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at me knowing something. What?
But yeah,
I'm not supposed to know things.
As a gay man who responds anytime someone says the word directress in Suspiria, I love Irma Bunt. I love that energy and when it comes into a movie. So very happy she's here. And I'm so unhappy to hear that 4 days. At least it was 4 days after. There are other stories. Of, this person died just before the movie premiered, and that would have been the worst. I feel like I hope she got to hear some praise.
Yeah, I hope so too. So yeah, I guess all that's left really to talk about is the gadgets. And in terms of gadgets, a very light movie. There's literally safe cracking copy machine, which it's implied is not provided by Q Division in this movie. It's just something Draco and his criminals have around. And then also
who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. Also radioactive lint, which is talked about at the very beginning of the movie, which to me feels like the most like we hate the gadgets, sort of like it's like an in joke of like, these gadgets are ridiculous, we do not care. And then pockets. Like when James Bond rips out his pockets to use as mittens.
And makes them the mittens.
Like, that's really it, guys, in terms of gadget.
I need to know more about this radioactive lint. I have questions.
So casual with the radioactivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the same at Thunderball. They were like, swallow this radioactive pill so we can figure out where you are. It's like, that doesn't seem safe, but okay.
Yeah, I'm like, James Bond should not be the one most on the ball about that. It's like, are you sure?
All right. I think that really wraps up on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay, or should I say Jamiroqueer. Tell people where they can find you online.
Oh, yeah. I am on Blue Sky at Jamiroqueer. Never said that aloud. Yeah, Bisky. BSKY.social. And yeah, I talk endlessly about movies online. So if you like more of that, that's exactly where you can find it.
And just to like pump you up, since you were so kind enough to come on, you have really amazing takes. Even on something like I love the more obscure the better, honestly, because I'm just like fascinated. Yeah, I think
That sounds like me. You live in interesting times, but okay.
Yeah, I'm actually just damning you with faint praise, but no, you are such a great follow, and I can't think of anybody better. And also, you have a better following than I do, so shut the fuck up. But
It's because I never shut up. So yeah, But thank you so much for that, and thank you for having me. It's such a delight. I had horrible stage fright the whole time because cool people inviting me on a podcast does not happen. But thank you very, very much. It's really an honor.
You did great.
With that, it's case closed for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Thank you for listening to Q Division. If you'd like to listen to our previous episodes, we are available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please make sure to rate and review our show while you're there. You can also find us on Blue Sky and on Instagram at QDivisionPod on both, or you can email us at qdivisionpod@gmail.com. Chels, please remind the agents where they can find you online.
I am Chels725 on the Blue Sky, the Letterbox, the Serialized, which is TV Letterbox, and where I'm probably most active. Nowhere else. Don't come find me. But also, and a rewatch pod. We're talking about The Traitors and Drag Race, which honestly, Drag Race might be better than The Traitors this year. And then we're going to cover Mythic Quest. Actually, by the time this is out, Mythic Quest and Yellow Jackets. We'll have coverage for all of those. We'll see what else we get up to. All kinds of trouble. Beyond the Gates, which is a new soap opera on CBS. We're all going to watch that.
Yeah, I would like to remind you that we're currently in May. Everybody, wink, wink. It's currently May of 2025. Wink, wink.
It's warm outside.
It's so warm.
Yeah, totally.
And as for me, I'm Gavin, and you can find my other long-running film podcast at The Mixed Reviews on any podcast platform. It's co-hosted by my good friend, Louis Rendon. If to find out more information about The Mixed Reviews, please visit glitterjaw.com/mixed-reviews. And with that, until next time, agents, we hope to have left you shaken and not stirred.
Yeah.
We have all the time in the world, time enough for life to unfold all the precious things love has in store.
Only thing I want to add to this is they kept every time Peter Cunt. Wow. Wow, Gavin.
Oh no.
Well, that'll go in the end files.